My name is Brandon Peifer. I'm a member of the NSCA High School SIG with Mark Hoover today, who is the Director of Strength Conditioning for South Carolina Comprehensive High School down in York, South Carolina. Mark agreed to talk to us today about the benefits of velocity-based training. It's something he's really dove into the last couple years, and we're grateful to have you with us today. So first question, what is velocity-based training?
It is a way to train where the primary output that you're looking for isn't necessarily the load; it's the athlete's velocity of the bar. So it really, there's a lot of different advantages, but one big advantage is it is going to adjust the athlete's load based on where they're at that moment in time, as opposed to, all right, we're at 87% for 3 or whatever today. Well, it's going to take into account the fact that one guy or girl slept 9 hours last night and one slept 4, that one has some stress of academics or a boyfriend, girlfriend situation, whatever, and it adjusts. And that way, you're really able to put the optimal load for the adaptation you're driving for that athlete in that moment. And that's kind of just the basics of it, I guess.
Awesome. Thank you. So how does it work? How do you set that up? How do you structure it? What does that look like when you implement that?
Well, I started in 2014, so I've done just about every possible way you can do it. The way I've landed on it right now, as far as programming and things like that, is we use ranges, velocity ranges that correlate with different aspects of the force velocity curve, whether that be absolute strength, accelerated strength, strength, speed, strength, etc. And each of those ranges more or less correlate with intensity percentage. It's probably, for everybody, it's a little bit different for everybody, but it's just a lot easier to use those ranges as far as I'm concerned. I used to set a floor, I've used it as APRE, which you can do it successfully with, and I still do that once in a while with our younger athletes. And when we're going through kind of a more traditional strength phase, I do use APRE. Right now, with all of my athletes, we're using ranges. So, for example, our football guys right now, last week we started our in-season program, and I was kind of going the first couple weeks. July's kind of a goofy month here in South Carolina because we got 2 dead periods. So we worked a lot on power during those periods. What we had when we came back, I had a nice solid 2.5 weeks where I had a chance to work some strength with them. So I put our using Perlican's chart with the volume. I set it up for our reps, sets and reps at a strength. So we were down around 0.3 to 0.4, 0.35 to 4.5, and the way I do it is I kind of wave it. So we'll, if we're at 3 to 4, then the next it might be 3.5 to 4.5, working towards the next thing the next kind of phase we're going to work in. So right now we are off that strength phase, and we did it last week. This week went to a more dynamic effort phase where we were in 8.5 to 9.5. So we're kind of in the middle of that strength speed. We were strength, working up towards a little bit more of the power end of that absolute strength velocity. And now we're going to work up the chain a little bit towards the top of the strength speed this week. We'll go back to some strength. Next week, we'll kind of wave back and forth, dynamic to strength, and just instead of sliding the percentages like some people might go 80, 60, 85, 65, I do that with the velocity range. So, my range would be, last week was 3.5 to 4.5. Then this week we're dynamic, so it's 8.5 to 9.5. Then we go back to some strength next week. It might go 3-2 to 4-2. And, you know, we're just kind of working our way down a little bit. So it, you know, it's not a whole lot different than training, you know, your traditional way. It's just a way to make sure the kids are where they need to be at that time, you know?
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So since it's not just for power development, or you're not using it just for power development, are there any prerequisites before you let kids get into the VBT?
So I know that's probably, a lot of people probably have a different attitude towards it. And some people, and I used to be that way. I used to be, this was kind of a reward for our top end athletes. You know, we put our athletes in levels and blocks like everybody else does. And it was kind of one of those things that my top block kids got to use and maybe dabbled with block 3. And then, you know, conversation I had with someone that's been a big mentor to me, Gary Schofield, about how he was using it with some of his 9th and 10th graders to kind of teach them intent and teach them and adjust the load, because, and it just made a lot of sense that here's the number one thing that your athletes are going to do. And every strength coach that works with 9th and 10th grade males knows this, yourself included. If you say, put some weight in the bar, before you can even turn around, someone's pinned under the bar. If you know, we're benching or squatting, because they're like, I want to, you know, well, so then, you know, you tell them I want a 5-rep max, and what's going to happen if they get the, yeah, we're going to work up to, well, second set, someone's goes 2, and again they're pinned or they can't, you know. So he and I got to talking, and it just made so much sense that I can give the athlete kind of a range of reps, saying, all right, and this is exactly what I do with our young guys and girls. Girls a little bit easier because they really listen, you know. Guys, you know, so I say, this is exactly how I started with them. 0.35, that's the floor. You can't drop below that. And on bench, squat might be a little bit different. There's a whole thing we can talk about there too, but about the different lifts. But so 0.35, and why I use 0.35, it's in the absolute strength zone, and it's a zone that everybody has it. So, you know, Dr. Mann talked about training with a professional power lifter on the bench. They went to 0.08, which, you know, and the most college athletes are 2.1 to 2.4 as their max. So 3.5 is a place that I'm comfortable with those athletes. So I let them load it up, and they start to learn just by they don't know what VBT is. I don't explain it to them. I just say 5-rep max. You can put as much weight on there as you want, but you can't drop below this. And then we just start rolling with it, put it up on the TV. I use VMAX Pro, so we got the bar path, and they're kind of just watching it. I get a couple reps in. Get talking about adding weight. Well, here's exactly what happens. Next thing I do is I stop them, and I point out an athlete that had a really good velocity, and then not such a good velocity on back-to-back reps, same weight, and I stop them, and I make them look at the bar path of that. I make the whole class stand around, look at that TV, and I say, what's the difference between those 2 reps? Did he all of a sudden, was he stronger on 1 rep and weaker on, what happened there? And the kids look up, and they can see the bar path, and they say, oh, the bar was closer to the middle line. Exactly. So guys, look, we know we have to move the bar fast, and we have to move the bar with great technique in order to add as much weight as you can. What's everybody's goal in here? And we want to be strong, you know, we want to add as much, right? Well, that's your goal. That's how you get there. Bar path. Watch that bar path. Great bar path, great intent. Add more weight. That's how it's going to work. 5 minutes later, you got a room full of 9th and 10th graders talking physics. In my head, like, what just happened? I said, Coach, that's how we're going to use VBT to get them to understand what we want, because we care about transfer. We care about intent. We care about the technique, because we know that that's all that matters. I don't care about the load. I want that. Well, they don't care anything about the load at all. They don't know transfer. They don't care. But meet them where they're at by being able to show them the bar path on the TV. It's like a video game. They're leveling up. That's how you level up. You look at the bar path. You level up. You look at your velocity. You level up. All of a sudden, boom, you got these guys talking about bar path. And to this day, that same group I just had some of those guys in there just now. We just had our football team. Those guys were 9th graders when I did that. They're 10th graders now. They're talking about bar path, and not as much bar path today because we're doing trap bar, but they were arguing about who could get the most in the range we were in, and it turns into a video game for them. And now all of a sudden we have met the athlete where they're at, and now what's important to us just became important to them because we were able to say, oh, you want the most load. Okay, here's how you do it. And you show them on the screen or on the iPad, on the TV, however you want to do it. And all of a sudden they start to understand that, and they all grasp it. Mm-hmm. We did 6 sets of 3 in there, working up just now on the hex bar. And I was working up to we were in our strength speed. I was working up to 8.5 to 9.5 was the range. I barely had the first set. I walked around and I tell guys, all right, you probably go 25 or probably go 10. Probably, after that, they just rolled with it. No cards, no, they just boom, they went. So my thought process is now, why in the world would we waste that? Yeah, it could be for advanced athletes, but you know what? In reality, it's a way to progress the strength adaptation in an optimal way. You're not guessing. They're not going to miss reps because they know where the floor is. Right. They're not going to miss reps. If they miss reps, they're not listening. They're not paying attention. So it's not going to be miss reps. It doesn't matter. I had a buddy of mine reach out yesterday and say, hey, our football coach let me know that he thought conditioning was an issue in our game, so we were going to start doing a lot more running after practice. He said, that's going to affect. He's a VMAX Pro guy too. He said, what should I do? And I said, look, dude, you might want to lower the volume a little bit, but overall, you want to be still in that force velocity, that end of your force velocity curve that's going to be completely away from that slow running. So it doesn't really make that much of a difference. And you don't need to adjust percentage. If I was a percentages guy, I'd say, yeah, you better cut down percentages. You don't need to VBT. Put the thing, let it roll, because it's going to adjust for that fatigue because you don't know who's tired and who's not. So if you drop that percentage, you're going to meet some guys where they are, and some guys it's going to be less than optimal dose. So the VBT just says, here it is. I just had a guy in there just now, one of our 10th graders. That's wrong. I move faster than that. I was like, dude, you think the VMAX Pro picks one kid out of 60 and says, we're going to get this guy? No, dude, that's how fast you moved. If that's what it is. VMAX Pro isn't some of these other IMUs you hook. Like when you run a VMAX Pro, it's going to give you the right, it's going to give you the right. It's very accurate. So don't tell not, so, that's just, so my thought is if strength is our main focus for our younger athletes, why would we leave that powerful tool unused when I could use it with all of them?
Right.
Especially when you got something that corrects your technique. That VMAX Pro is like having an assistant coach, man. I'm telling you. Because they know the other kids know. They'll say, hey, your bar path is terrible or it's great. So I do use it as a power developing tool in a kind of on top of our strength adaptation. That is the main thing with VBT is to push strength.
Yeah. So, I just hearing you talk, it sounds like it would make so much sense to get better quality reps, and having those kids auto-regulate appropriately. Yep. It just seems like it would be
every single rep. It's crazy.
You can use it with any phase, can't you? As long as you just vary the meters per second.
Yep. To the point where our football guys still talk a little bit in pounds because that's just football. My girls, I have particularly the 30-some that I have in class, they don't even think the only thing pounds is to them at this point because particularly my girls' basketball team that's been year-round using VBT. To them, pounds is just a way to get into the zone that they need. They don't care about the pound. They walk in, what's our zone, coach? What's our reps? What's our zone? And and you can do all various ways. You could just set like guys in there today 6 sets of 3. Well, clearly at the load they were doing, they could have done a lot more than 3. But today we were working
Mm-hmm.
the kind of the middle to upper end of that strength speed. So it's still, I got some guys in there doing 275, 305, but those guys can also, pull 505 and 525 on a good day. So they're still getting that power adaptation. But you can also say, do as many reps as you can until you drop below this number.
Mm-hmm.
That's something I would do with my more advanced athletes. I don't have too many right now that we're very young, but especially in football, we're just very young. So I don't have a whole lot that I've used a drop, like a hard drop, like go until as many reps as you can get until you get this, then, add some weight and just keep working up. I've used 10% drop from peak power on our hand cleans with a very small group. The guys that had been with me, that had understood, had earned that right, and they would come in and I would put them on their own rack and I would give them each what their peak power on hand cleans and what their weight was last time, and they would work up, and they knew keep going until they drop 10%, keep going until they drop 10%. When they can't get one rep at 90% or more of their previous peak power, they're done.
Awesome.
So, but it's unrealistic to think you can do that with a room full of 70 guys or girls. But that's where you can use VBT at all. You can tell. Honestly, most of my ninth graders aren't going to use VBT until the end. And it's going to kind of be more sparse because I'm a 1x20 guy, so they're still working through their and you could use VBT for it. And I saw someone write an article about it. I don't, but I could. And then I slowly started introducing it kind of at the end of their ninth grade year, going into 10th. But you can use it for anything from basic, just this will tell you how much weight to put on the bar, and that's your drop. You can add as much weight as you want. There's your drop, all the way up to the different, more crazy advanced techniques. And it's really just how far you want to get into it, and it's just really your individual situation.
I imagine you get a lot of kids coaching each other too.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable that, and because, like I said, with the bar path, a lot of people will ask me like bar path, and I'm just like, I'm telling you, I would never use another VBT device that didn't give me bar path and acceleration through the time of the rep. So they can use bar path to coach each other. They're getting to the point now where I've talked about, so I can go in there and look at their reps, and basically what it does is it shows on their rep what percentage of that rep that athlete was actually accelerating the bar.
Yeah.
And so what they found out, their study they did in Germany with the VMAX Pros, is obviously you want to be as close to 100% as you can be about how far you're moving the bar, but 70% and above is the sweet spot, like where you're getting the best. We went in there and looked, and we got let me plug up my phone here real quick. Sorry.
No worries.
So we went there and looked, and I found out that our kids weren't accelerating through that, and I queued them up on it, and I kind of showed them how I was figuring that out. It's a little bit more time, and they can only do it if they've got a little bit of time because you got to click on the rep and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Like all of a sudden, it caused me to come up with a couple of cues for each exercise that helped increase their intent just by cueing them, so that their velocity, their mean velocity went up, their mean power went up, their peak power went up, because now they're thinking about, okay, I need to move this bar as fast as I can for as far as I can. Well, that and bar path are invaluable tools to get the most out of the exercise.
Yeah.
I would never be, I could. You can just use a device that just gives you outputs. That's fine. Where it just says, here's your power, here's your speed, your velocity. That's fine. That would work. But for me, I'm so spoiled now with VMAX Pro, and I think, GymAware does the same thing, but it just does it for like, $2,500 instead of $300, so where it gives you bar path in that. I don't think I could ever go back just because of what you just said. The kids are coaching themselves. I had one of my defensive linemen in there today clicking on his rep to make sure he was accelerating. And one of the smarter kids that kind of got it, I said, what you doing, man? He said, I was checking out how far I accelerated the bar. And I was like, that's awesome.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah, for sure. So you've mentioned VMAX Pro several times. For high school coaches, as you know, budgets are always tight. Obviously you use VMAX Pro, but what would you recommend for somebody getting started into this? How to jump in? What kind of technology? What are the options?
So I've used a bunch. And I don't want to get into the ones I no longer use.
Sure.
They're the ones that a lot of guys use, but nothing has compared to VMAX Pro. No, I've never used a GymAware. I would guess GymAware is, undoubtedly probably, but for the cost, I need 8 units. I don't have $16,000. So, $329 is a pretty good cost on that. For I get mine. Well, Simply Faster is the only American dealer, so I get them at Simply Faster. $329. There's a team license that you can use. You don't need to use, but you can use. And if you want to kind of, instead of keeping track of the outputs, it'll keep track of all that stuff for you. And it's kind of like a Coaching Plus or a Team Builder type situation with that, but you got to pay for that. So $329 would get you started just on the device and rolling. And then it works with Android. I have Androids and Apple. I prefer Apple. Just you get a little bit more out of the iOS than you do the Android, but they work for both. A buddy of mine bought 10 iMac Pros, and he has 10 track phones that he spent $27 a piece on. And so he didn't buy the team license or anything. So he bought the 8 or 10, whatever he's got, and the 8 or 10 track phones. And they just go straight output. So they've got, I don't know if they use Team Builder or exactly what they do, but so he has them. And since he doesn't have individual names in the VMAX Pro, what he does is he just has them lift, and you can record your load, your velocity and your power output if you want and I think he is a Team Builder guy. So right in Team Builder, he puts that in there. Same thing. My athletes do it in Coach Me Plus. We use Coach Me Plus. My girls put all that stuff in there. So really, for $329 a station plus whatever device you're going to use, that's what it costs. So, you could put, I think the 10 units is $3,200, right? So for $3,200, you could put 10 racks on VBT, as long as your school come up with the devices. But worst comes to worst, I'm telling you, I got them too. I got track phones in here too, because I use them when I didn't have enough iPads, I was using track phones too. I went to Walmart and I bought like 5 or 6 of them. They probably thought I was doing something shady because I bought 5 or 6 track phones, but you just fire those things up and boom, So, but
it'll sync with Bluetooth.
Yep, and I'm telling you, compared to the other IMUs that attach to the bar ones that I've used, it's not even close. How you can hook it up, it's not going to kick you off ever. Like, you could hook those things up at 7:00 in the morning, and as long as your iPad didn't die, those things are still going to be hooked up at 7:00 at night. I've come back the next day and trying to get hooked up, and it kept denying. I was like, what in the world? Why is it not hooking up? And then I realized I was still connected to another iPad from the day before. So you don't miss reps. Any missed rep that has happened, people call me. I help out with the VMAX. I'm like the guy that has used it the longest, I guess, with teams. So I'll help them out when they have technical questions about it. People call me up, and almost every missed rep, basically every missed rep, is human error. You're bouncing the trap bar. You're not, you're kind of, and once you get it down, it doesn't miss reps. It's consistent. They're getting ready to drop a study here pretty soon that's going to be pretty eye-opening as its accuracy compared to GymAware. And I haven't looked at the study so I don't want to quote it. I've just been told what it's going to say, and I think everybody be happy with the accuracy of it. But yeah, by far, not even close to some of the other IMUs out there.
Awesome. So one last question for you, for coaches that are going to see this and are interested in getting more information. What would be some good resources you recommend? I know I've read Brian Mann's book, which was awesome, gives a lot of great information. What resources would you recommend?
Yeah, Brian Mann, Dr. Mann is the man. He probably gets so tired of me messaging him. Like, I Facebook message him like nonstop. I went through his. I think a great thing would be his online certification. I went through it, and it really does a great job of covering the basics, but also getting into the in-depth into how some things. And he's a gym aware guy, but it all transfers over. The other thing is, I know on simplyfaster.com, I've written a couple of VBT articles. There's tons of VBT articles on there. Just go on there and search for that, and you'll see, the one thing about the VBT for sure is you need to talk to coaches that are using it in the same space that you're in, because a guy that's using it with Division I athletes is going to have a little bit different take on things. Not that you can't get things from them, but, for me, before I can use anything, I want to talk to the guy that uses it with a classroom full of ninth grade boys consistently, because that's the test. That's the test.
Yeah.
Because, it's like herding cats of those guys, and they don't listen. And it's like, my daughter's a senior in high school, and what's wrong with my boyfriend? He's a teenage boy. That's what's wrong with him. He just can't focus. And we all know that. You and I were there, the same thing. So I don't want to talk to the guy that has about this particularly. I want to get in depth with the guy that's in my space. So that's what I would suggest. And there's a lot of great high school coaches using this. I mean, you can always reach out to me. If you need any help with Simply Faster, I do a lot with them. I help them out as much as I can. But those would be the resources: Simply Faster, Dr. Mann. There's some great podcasts out there. Just Fly Sports has some good Joel does a good job with that kind of stuff. And, you can just type in VBT periodization man, and then all the charts and everything will pop up. You can kind of, with these charts that I just popped them up just now, and the Prolipins chart, I mean, you're good to go, And my suggestion would be, if someone wants to get into it, talk to some people, obviously, but then just order a VMAX Pro, and put it on the bar and just start playing around with it, because it's literally, you just hook that thing up and go. There's no, and then you can kind of see where to go from there. And I can tell you 100% that no one has ever called me up after they used VMAX Pro and said, "Man, I don't like this device." So it's so it's because it's really simple to use. So that's what I'd go. I'd go in those directions, and obviously I'm a big advocate for it, but I wouldn't advocate for it if it wasn't the best thing for me at that price point. Because there's not a lot of high school coaches that are spoiled. My buddy Adam Vogel, he's spoiled. He's got a bunch of, he's got a gym aware, and he's got, but I always tease him. So if you want to talk to someone to use all of that, reach out to Adam Vogel. But not everybody has the ability to spend money on technology like that. So, I'm looking at that $300 range for us, and it's been good. I just ordered 2 more, so we're going to have 8.
Nice. Mm-hmm. So you had mentioned coaches reaching out. You and I connected via Twitter. Is that the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah. At YorkStrength17. You can email me at hoovermd@yahoo.com is my Yahoo address. You know, send me a direct message. I'll jump on a phone call with anybody. I end up doing that a whole lot. I've kind of inadvertently become the high school face of VMAX Pro. So just because I've used it and I do social media, so I end up talking to a lot of people about it. So it's cool. I like it. And if I refer someone, it helps me get more equipment for my school too. So it's I don't mind doing it at all.
Nice. No, for that, people are going to see this. Mark took about an hour of his time and talked with me just out of the blue. I messaged him on Twitter, and that's how we connected. And it was awesome. We just got some VMAX pros here, and he's been a huge help to me. So thank you for all your time.
Yeah,
I really appreciate you taking the time today and your willingness to share this on the high school SIG page. And
absolutely,
look forward to talking soon.
All right, thanks, man. I'll talk to you.
All right, Coach.
Have a good one.
See ya.
Bye.